Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals, and part of what we do along with special guests are these office hours sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We have a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, which we can go through. But if anybody on the call has any questions, please just flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, please feel free to share your perspectives. I think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours is that we've usually got a bunch of SEOs and marketing people on the call, and actually everybody adds amazing input and insights into some of people's problems. Like every week, with me today is Joe Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I love your t-shirt. That's a really good one that you have. Can I get a link with that, mate? The Brighton SEO one. Yeah, really happy to have another great SEO office hours today. I wanted to say a big thank you to our guests, our special guests today, and also for people joining us live. Heidi, Simon, Steve, Johnny, Peter, Anatolia, and Chris. And also, I think we already have quite international SEO office hours today. Mike's calling in from London. I'm in Barcelona. We also have Bucharest, dialing in from Bucharest, and Skopje. So if you could write down where you're dialing in from here, that'd be great. Nice international office hours. And as Mike said, yes, I'm Joe Juliana Turnbull. I run a remote digital marketing consulting business called Turn Global here in Barcelona, and I help clients improve their organic and social visibility. I'm also the founder of a networking group called Search Barcelona, and I also run Search London. And we're turning 13 years old on February 26th, and we'll have an in-person event in London. And I will share the code in the chat for anyone coming to SEO Office Hours. You can have a discount when you come in London. And I'm really pleased to have today, we have two great speakers. We have Mihai and Boris. Mihai actually used to attend the original SEO Office Hours with John Mueller, and he now actively contributes as a product expert within Google's Search Central community. He is the head of SEO and the founder of Vertify, which is an SEO and content marketing agency, which is in Bucharest. And I'm really pleased to have Boris here today. He is an in-house SEO and content manager at Enterprise League, and he's also a freelance SEO consultant, and he's dialing in from North Macedonia. He's going to be attending the Digital Olympus conference at the end of May 31st in the Netherlands. So come and find him at the conference. And he'll also, and Mihai will be answering all your questions today in the channel. So please ask those questions there in the chat. I'll share the LinkedIn profiles with you now. Over to you, Mike.
Great. Okay, let's get cracking. Joe, I love Search London's birthday. I feel like we've been talking about that for months. I hope you're the same with your son when it's Sebastian's birthday.
Yes.
Okay, first question is just a regular one, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO? Who would like to kick off?
I guess
Go for it.
I could do it. So I think I would lie if I wouldn't say, if I didn't say I wasn't excited about the AI, all of the AI hype, and sooner or later we're going to see it. As we have seen the experiments, we're going to see it creeping more and more onto the organic search side, and obviously SEOs will probably need to get a bit more in the loop in order to tackle whatever challenges the whole change that AI brings with SEO. So that, I think, is going to be pretty interesting. I'm usually a fan of anything cutting edge. So I'm always excited to read and to learn about new stuff. Yeah, I'm excited to see how that will impact our work and SEO works in general, and what we could do about it.
Great. And Boris, what about you? What are you excited about at the moment?
Yes, I think it goes without saying that everybody's excited about AI and how it's going to impact SEO. But I think I'm also looking forward to the blend of social media and SEO, and how some social medias like Reddit are going to impact SEO. I think with Google adding perspectives directly in the search, that is going to have a big impact on how people will find and interact with businesses and websites going forward. And I just read yesterday that Google announced a partnership with Reddit. So I think that's something that is going to also impact the future of SEO going forward. And yeah, it will be, in my opinion, more of a blend between SEO and social media going forward. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Great. Joe, what about yourself? Anything that you're excited about at the moment?
I started using ChatGPT this week, and yes, it can help a lot, but you do need to definitely have a human interaction. I am excited about all the different webinars actually taking place about ChatGPT, about AI, because it can be quite confusing what is there to learn about. And actually this week, Chima hosted a podcast with Caitlin, and it was about how to use ELMS to power your entire content strategy. And I'll share that link in the chat. You can still register to watch it back. And also there was a great webinar yesterday by SEO Nerd Switzerland, how to set up and use a podcast to reach an international audience. So we're seeing obviously AI, but at the same time, we're still able to do things like relevance podcasts. So still important to be active pretty much in both areas. And of course, I'm really excited for Sir Sonya's birthday. So I'll share that in the chat.
Cool. I actually went out for dinner on Wednesday in Milton Keynes that Majestic was hosting, and Dixon is sponsoring the next Search London from Inlinks.
Yes, Inlinks is sponsoring the next Search London, and this is it within our whole SEO or search community. What I really like is it's a very supportive network, because Dixon actually came from one of the very first Search London events and has always supported. So really happy that as Inlinks they're sponsoring. It's actually their first event that they're sponsoring. So really happy that he will be sharing that experience with us at Search London.
Great. Talking of sponsorship, by the way, Joe and I, we look like we're sponsored by Brighton SEO. We're not. Just before the call, we realized that Joe and Mihai were both wearing SEO t-shirts. So I rushed around the office to see if I had one, and I had the exact same one as Joe. So we're not sponsored, by the way. We've not sold out. It's still the original. In terms of what I'm excited about, this week I've been doing a lot of getting back into creative link building, actually, and more from a PR perspective. So coming up with some ideas. So I've been doing loads of research into just previous campaigns that other people have done, and have been thinking, what's the version for the people that I work with? And we've got a new client, and that's going to be a big part of them as well. So it's been like a really creative week, which has been fun. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of questions to get us going from the submitted ones. And then if anybody has any, feel free to put them in the chat, like I said, and they'll be monitored and prioritized. So we've got two on speed, actually. So we'll start with this one. Speed testing tools list several issues that need to be fixed. However, I'm not a developer. I understand things like compressing images. However, how am I expected to know how to remove unused code or minimize file sizes? So has anybody got any advice? So you get the testing tools like PageSpeed Insights and so on. They list a load of issues, and I'm guessing this person is a business owner or marketing manager where they're not necessarily a developer, and they've been presented with a load of issues and they're panicking. Mihai, how do you feel about starting?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I think webmasters need to know before starting to work on all of those issues is that several times Google, and especially John Mueller from Google, mentioned that these kind of speed scores that you get in Speed Insights and other tools, they play a very small part in terms of rankings. So if you don't have anything else to work on your website in terms of content, in terms of optimizations and things like that, sure, you can tackle those speed-related issues. But if you don't, you shouldn't worry that, oh, I'm on page 2 in Google and I could be in top 3 if I just solve this speed issue. It's, at least from what I remember John mentioned, is that it's more of a tiebreaker. As in, if you have multiple websites and they're just as good and they're just as well optimized, then sure, speed can play that factor, who's position 1, who's position 2, and the other way around. But it's definitely a very small factor. And I know there are multiple technical knowledge that you need to have in order to make sure that you get green and 100% scores all across the board. And that's usually not even, that's not necessary, because you don't have to have the biggest score. You just need to make sure that the user experience is as good as possible on the website. A lot of CMSs and a lot of commercial platforms try to take care of that as much as possible. So if you're using something like, I don't know, Shopify, or you have an e-commerce store, then it's likely that Shopify already has out of the gate a lot of optimizations made in order to have users have a good experience and load the site quickly and everything like that. But of course, if you start adding like tens of plugins, and those plugins start adding their own like JavaScript files and resources and things like that, then that definitely can slow down your site. But generally speaking, as I mentioned earlier, speed is likely one of your lower priorities when it comes to SEO. You should probably focus much more on the content of the website and optimizing the pages and trying to answer whatever people are searching for around your given domain. And yeah, if you get the time and you can tackle a few of the technical issues, you might need to go to a webmaster or maybe the person who built the site in the first place, and in order to resolve those issues, or maybe talk to your host or anything like that, that might help bring you a few extra seconds in terms of, or milliseconds in terms of loading the page. But again, if your experience is good and if your user experience is fairly good and you're not waiting 5 seconds until you see anything on the page, then it's generally fine. Yeah, you could work on it, but it's unlikely you're going to see a significant impact.
Amazing advice. Boris or Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I think general the advice from Michael covers most of the thing, but I would just say if you don't have experience with development, reach out to somebody has more experience, that has experience both in software development and SEO, that can guide you through those recommendations from the tools. Any of the tools that we use for speed testing has recommendations that you can use to improve your site, and maybe work with a experienced developer that can guide you to what would be the impact and benefits of fixing those recommendations from that specific site. If there is not a huge impact for the user, if you're talking about a couple of seconds, maybe you can work and improve that. But if the improvement is minor, you can just work and make sure that the entire complete SEO strategy works fine, and don't put so much pressure on you for speed.
Great. And Joe, do you have anything else?
I want to say this is because this is a point that's come up before about people they're expected to know everything. You don't need to know everything. As Boris said, if you are having issues, reach out and ask a fellow web developer. This community is very supportive. So there may be other connections other people that you know that can help you with that. Also, we have some comments in the chat as well. Thanks for sharing, saying this is what you could check. Check images sizes before compression. Try and structure your CSS that would consider mobile first, and maybe invest in a plugin like WP Rocket or Nitro, which can help minify, and also a CDN could help, for example, Flare. Simon's saying with a lot of frameworks and CMS systems, it can be near impossible to optimize code. Perhaps if you have had this built by a third party, please ask that person for help. John is saying, is it better to compress images vertically or horizontally? Very good question. Don't know the answer to that one, but I'll get back to you on that one. And we have Shivani saying you should use WebP images instead of using the PNG or JPEG. So that's mostly for compression, which is what the guest was asking. How can I know how to? I understand the task about compressing images.
I do have one quick mention regarding performance tools. You also need to be careful because they tend to generate a lot of recommendations, and generally you don't even need to get through them all in order to get a good score. And by the way, when it comes to scores, remember that Google only cares about a few metrics, not that 100 score that you see in PageSpeed Insights or scores that other tools may present. They care about a few metrics that you can also see them in Search Console. And that's usually how fast can you see the site loading, the kind of the first thing on the page after you type in the URL, and how good the experience of users is when it comes to interacting with the site and things like that. So you don't need to fix everything that one of these page speed insights or web page tests or other tools suggest. You just need to make sure that those core web vital metrics are as well as possible. But again, I think whatever your domain is that your site is in, if you pick like the top 3 ranking sites that you find for various keywords that your site is relevant for, and you test them, it's very likely you'll find speed problems with those pages as well. I think even if you get Amazon or Etsy or one of these very big brands and you put them in these tools, you're not going to get perfect scores. And they're doing fine simply because they're big brands, they're very relevant. It's not as important as some people might think it might be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually, is just, I think with not just speed tools, but most tools, if you submit your website, you end up with hundreds of recommendations, especially any of the crawling tools and so on. And it's just like a ridiculous amount. And as somebody that's done this for a while, you know that a lot of those things aren't going to be the big thing that makes that impact. I think with the speed tools, they're quite good at helping you prioritize in terms of explaining, for instance, how much time something's taking to load. So you could prioritize in that sense. And the only other thing I was going to add is if you're using like a popular CMS like WordPress, for example, and that you're using a popular theme, chances are if you're having a problem with a certain area, then somebody else using that theme is. And I would suggest going into the theme forums or support forums and either seeing if that question's already been asked about that specific theme or plugin, and if not, ask the question. And usually I found that the owners of those themes want to try and help and so on. That just could be another avenue. Great, amazing answers. So the next one, I think let's stick to the speed theme. We've got another question here. So this is about Core Web Vitals. Interaction to next paint will replace first input delay in March. How do we optimize for this? So we've got interaction to next paint, which basically measures the responsiveness of user interactions. And then you've got input delay, which is about measuring that first interaction. Any thoughts? Who would like to kick off?
I haven't read a lot about interaction to next paint, but I know it's related to the responsiveness of user actions on a given web page, and that's usually related to JavaScript. And so that means that if you have pages that if your website is using a lot of JavaScript, and that JavaScript loads while the user is trying to interact with the website, then they might get delays and they click. Maybe you have a hamburger menu, right? And you're trying to click it to get the menu or a drop down or anything like that, and it doesn't show up right away. That's when that score will start to suffer, because you click on the menu, it doesn't show up. You're not sure, maybe you didn't click right, you click again, and then you get this kind of flickering. You wait a few seconds and then it shows up a few times, and it's not the greatest experience. Yeah, I think JavaScript definitely plays a role here, because if your browser is working a lot on loading all kinds of JavaScript in the background, and your users are trying to interact with the website, then they'll get these kind of delays. So it's important to make sure that if you're adding a lot of functionality that is JavaScript dependent on your site, you want to make sure that is loaded when it's actually needed. Because a lot of websites, and maybe you have WordPress and you have a theme and you have 10 plugins, all those plugins load various JavaScript files, but they're not actually used on the page. Maybe it's a contact form JavaScript, but you're on the home page and there's no contact form on the. You might not need to load that JavaScript on the home page, because the user only sees the contact form on the contact page or something like that. So ideally, the themes would be well optimized and the CMS would be well optimized to only load whatever JavaScript is needed for users to interact on the page, rather than load all of the JavaScript for the entire website and then have the user wait until everything is processed and then the user can interact well with the website. That's, I think, if I remember correctly, that's called bundling. And that's usually done by the CMS, or if you have developers, they can work something in order to make sure only the JavaScript that is needed is loaded. But yeah, that's what you will probably need to make sure in order to have those good scores.
Great. Boris, do you have anything to add to that?
So I think the challenge here is to make sure that your website provides a good experience for your client, for the customers. So I think if you're confident with your user experience, you're sure that when customer comes to your website and when they click something, they get what they're expecting. I think you can be safe with this new metric, because as Michael said, the most important thing is to provide a good user experience. And when I, as a user, click something on a website, I expect something to happen in a expected manner. Like, just try to follow Google guidelines for the new metric and make sure that your user experience is on point.
Great. And Joe?
No, I have nothing else to add, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more research that we can all do. I just also wanted to say, Chris mentioned from the last question just around it's relevant to users UX in terms of page speed as well. Like someone on a new phone or on 5G lower score, or on 5G will may have a lower score. Consider that use when you're optimizing for Core Web Vitals.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because if your site's audience is people who are usually on their phones, or maybe you have an audience people who are in a location where there's poor connectivity, then those scores will be worse. Your speed score will likely be worse versus if you have somebody who's in a very urban environment and they have access to a laptop and to fixed broadband and things like that, and 4G, 5G. One thing to remember about the speed tools that give you various scores is that they usually give you lab data and field data. So the lab data might not always be useful because it's tested using specific parameters, whereas field data is actually data from your actual users, and it's what in Search Console. So the Core Web Vitals and their scores that you see in Search Console are taken from actual users. So again, those will vary based on where are they accessing your site from, what device are they using, and so on. So it might, for some sites, it might not even make sense to focus a lot on compressing images or compressing CSS and inlining it and things like that, lazy loading and all that stuff, simply because their users have such a good connection, maybe, PCs and things like that, it doesn't really matter. Not that you should improve it, it's just a very low priority and unlikely to help you much.
Yeah. The only things that I will add, because obviously you've given amazing answers, is that I've gone blank. No, I haven't. With these scores, I think like the person said, how do we optimize for this? And I think it's not really about optimizing for that particular score. It's an indicator, but it's more about, like everybody said, it's more about the actual user experience on your website. And you want to improve that. You don't really want to just increase those. And then the other thing is, if you're really focused on this particular metric, it is already available in the Page Speed Insights tool. Start optimizing for it now if that's something that you really want to do and you've got that to measure. So you don't need to wait until March. You can start doing it now. But yeah, sometimes we get questions and they're really specific. Like, it's good because they're really specific, but at the same time, Google's not trying to catch you out. You're not optimizing for that score. You're trying to do it to make things better for the user. Okay, next question.
Yeah, I just want to say before we go to the next question that we've got actually people dialing in from 15 different cities today, which is great. So completely international SEO Office Hours. And also for those that are watching afterwards, not live, if you're enjoying the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and also click to the video, and we'll be having these every Friday. And I would like to also say a hello to my sister Ruth, my twin sister Ruth Turnbull. She's dialing in from Brisbane. She's here. Hi, and hello everyone else that's joined us after the initial introduction. Back to you, Mike.
Great. Ruth's actually going to be co-hosting, right? She's taking your spot when you go to the Women in Tech SEO conference.
Yes,
so
March 8th.
Great. Okay, so next question. Other businesses operating in different industries have the same name as us. We appear on the first page of Google when you search for our brand term, but we don't appear in any of the top positions. We don't really want to rebrand. Do you have any advice? Boris, how do you fancy kicking off on this one?
Yes. So I would say the first thing would be, if you're already ranking for your brand name on the SERPs, maybe try to put your service in your page title, so that at least for the users that are searching for you, it can be clear who they are clicking to. So if it's basically the same business. So if it's in a completely different industry, it would be easy to separate them as a user. And also, if I would say, make use of Claim Your Google My Business. use local directories to ensure that Google has proper information so they can understand that this is a separate business. Implement a schema so that you can provide as much as information as you can. And I think, yeah, at the end of the day, make it clear to the user that you're a separate business, and then to Google also. And if they are in different industries, I don't think there will be any overlap in any additional SEO efforts. So I think, yeah, try to make yourself different from the competitor on those SERPs.
Mihai?
Yeah, I think what Boris mentioned is, so you can do some technical work in order to make sure that Google understands that your brand is this name. Like Boris mentioned, make sure you have the brand name in your meta title. Your internal links are using towards your homepage, are using your brand name, or maybe the logo has an alt tag that is using your brand name. Maybe you have the brand name as a suffix to all your other pages' titles. But at the end of the day, you'll hit a wall with these kind of technical. So you can do them and you should probably do them, but it's not going to guarantee that you'll outperform everybody else that is using the same brand name, because everybody else is probably already doing this already. And it's, if I had a company named IKEA, but it's doing, my SEO agency was named IKEA, and let's say I didn't get sued for some reason, it's unlikely I would be able to beat the main IKEA website, whatever I do on my website, simply because Google understands that most people who are searching for that brand name are searching for the furniture e-commerce store, not my agency. Google, once it figures out that, okay, your brand name is this, then I have all these other websites that have the same brand name, then user intent is going to play a big factor, and you can't really influence that much. Because if most users, when they're searching for that brand name, already have in mind that specific domain, that specific niche, then it's going to be hard for you to go up in the search results simply just because you have that same name, because users were probably actually looking for another of those websites. So there are some things you can do, but there's diminishing returns to them, and there's just a certain wall that after that, your brand authority, so to speak, comes into play. So if you're a big brand and you're present everywhere, and you have a lot of online mentions and things like that, then yeah, that might actually help you. But other than that, Google is going to try to figure out what do users actually search for when they search for that brand name. Which of these entities should I show for position 1, position 2, and so on. So there's things you can do, you can grow, but there's probably a certain limit that you'll hit in depending on whoever else, those other brands, and how powerful, how big are they, and how important are they to those users.
Yeah, it definitely feels like more of a brand awareness issue than an SEO one. And providing they've got all the basics right, like you just said, it sounds like when people are searching for the brand, it sounds like they're probably looking for those other businesses at the moment, and maybe focusing on all of those other signals so that you become known, or you're the brand that people are actually searching for. Joe, have you got any additional?
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, there's a few comments in the chat, so I'll go through that first, and then I'll add my 2 cents. So Simon, thanks for that. You're saying that brands can be tricky. Yes, the tricky thing. So focus on what people are searching for. So he's used his example of when you look for Simon Cox in Google or in a search engine, you'll get rubbish football stuff. But if you search, of course, for Simon Cox SEO, you'll get Simon. And Raquel is saying she would also suggest if you are creating a new business, try and do some research first to see if that name is used in many businesses already, because it could lead to confusions or to the problems mentioned in the future. And I also just wanted to say about this with a brand name, especially when international, please try and check it out in other markets, because what one name may be in one country is maybe looks negative in another. And also with brand names that can refer to other things. For example, the brand Triumph. Triumph is known as a motorcycle company, but actually it's also a lingerie. I think they were set up in Germany. But when you look at Triumph and you're in the US, many times you actually see the motorcycle and not the lingerie.
It also could be one of those kind of points that it might be really annoying to the person who's asked the question, but actually in reality, if somebody's searching for your brand name, they know who you are. So if they land on a website that, say for instance, you do plumbing and they land on a website that's about trainers, they're going to leave that site and they're going to look at the other options. So it might be one of those things that if it is a new site over time, your site will hopefully develop and grow. And then if you become the business that people are searching for, then you will appear in the top.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, sorry, I was just going to say about when I said you researched the brand name before going international, I couldn't think of the example, but Simon just gave it, so thank you. The Vauxhall Nova didn't sell well in Spain because Nova means doesn't go. So I'm not going to buy a car that doesn't go. And Chris said that I think KFC had a problem in China years ago about eating finger in their marketing campaign. And actually McDonald's had a bad one with their brand as I'm loving it. And in Japan, it's very difficult. Japanese are very difficult to pronounce the L. It goes R. So it sounds like I'm rubbing it. It's very different meaning to I'm loving it. So that didn't work so well.
Yeah. And so, somewhere else where this might be an issue actually is if your keywords are in your brand name. So say, for instance, you're trying to rank for event organizer and you own eventorganizer.com, then if there are bigger and better and more well-known event companies, it might be that you're not going to rank for that. It could just be a really competitive term. Okay, should we jump to the next question? Do we have any questions in the chat at all, Joe?
No, it's just a lot of interaction about those names. Thank you for that. I think we've answered all of them. Thanks for being so interactive, for chatting so much.
Okay, next question. How long does it take for backlinks to show in Google Search Console or third-party tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs and so on? And also, how long can it take for the link juice to pass to my website? Okay, who would like to start? What about you, Joe? Do you want to start with this one?
Okay, sure. In terms of how long it takes for links to show in Google Search Console, I found that sometimes it can take a week or sometimes it can take longer backlinks to show. And in third-party programs, it does depend on when they do the crawl. Some do it once a month, some do it maybe more than that for that to appear. I don't really pay much attention to this link juice, but what I want to have is that my site, if I'm working with a third-party site, a publication that's talking about my new product, maybe my great Brighton SEO t-shirt or my great Search London event, if they're covering that, I want to make sure that that website or that newspaper is relevant to my audience. So I don't look at link juice. And sorry, just going with some comments here. Simon says, depends on the viscosity of the link juice. That's a good one, Simon. And Monse, depends on the quality of the link juice. Orange is preferred to tomato. Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
Great. Boris or Mihai, who would like to, does anybody have anything to add to that?
So, yeah, sure. So I would add that maybe just have a in-house or just track your outreach efforts and measure success with those key KPIs that you have set, and instead of relying on any third-party tools, because you need to keep a track of how many links are live for each page. What is the quality of each link? Are they natural links, or they're just like low quality links that are used for link juice, but they're not really bringing any good juice, just low effort link juice. And then over time, you can track the effort of your outreach campaign by seeing the results and measuring them against the KPIs. And if you see improvement in those pages that receive the backlinks, maybe you can say, okay, so this is when the efforts have shown some results. But again, I don't think without overall SEO efforts, only relying on backlinks would be a smart choice in the first place.
Great. Mihai, have anything?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to add. Generally speaking, when they show up, whether it's in Search Console or other tools, usually depends on how fast are they crawled by each individual crawler. If you're getting mentioned in very big websites, very popular websites that either Google or other tools crawl fairly frequently, then obviously they will show up quite fast in whether it's Search Console or SEMrush or Ahrefs or things like that. I guess it's on average, it can be a couple of days, it could be a few weeks. So that depends a lot. In terms of the effect, that it has and link juice and things like that. Yeah, it's usually once Google discovers that link, it's likely that link already has an effect on your website. And that's not just the link juice, so to speak, or page rank or things like that. At the end of the day, one link is also a vote of confidence from that website to your website. It's also an effect on your entire website, so to speak. And of course, based on your internal linking and how PageRank flows, Google uses the effects of a link can have other impacts on various pages of the site. So yeah, once you see it in Search Console, it's all likely having an effect on your website, and you'll probably see it based on how fast Google finds that link in whatever publication or website your site was mentioned in.
Right, I'm just imagining somebody getting a link and then sitting in Google Search Console waiting for it to just pop up.
Refresh.
How long is it
Yeah.
going to take? Yeah,
I think there's. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I think there's also a small delay that from when Google crawls it to when it actually shows up in Search Console. I think there's a reporting delay, so to speak, but I don't think that's very big. So once you get it, you should probably see it within a few days. And if it's a very small website that Google crawls infrequently, or it's on a website, but a big website, but it's on a page that is very hard to find by Google, then you'll have to wait more time until that link is discovered.
Yeah, if I'm totally honest, I love Google Search Console and I'm in it most days, but I'd say the feature that I use the least is the link section, and I probably some of the other tools I use for that to see first seen and so on. But that's just out of habit, I think, more so than anything. So I can't really answer too much on that one. Okay, I'll take a few more. How are we doing for time? Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
28 minutes left.
Okay.
No, but less than that. 17 minutes left.
Rapid fire question.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, actually, we
well-
just have some chats. So just want to say thanks for people asking some questions in the chat. We have one around just how to delete spammy pages in Google Search Console that are not even on the website. This actually is a topic that was actually in the Google Search forum early this console help early this year, actually from January. The site was hacked. It has spammy pages in his Google Search Console, and thanks Simon for saying about letting them 404 and they'll drop from the index. There's also a remove URL tool in Google Search Console, but the URL should not make any difference to your site, because if your site has been hacked, then Google will know that it's been hacked, especially if you've been starting from scratch on that one.
Yeah, and remove URL is mainly to hide it from the index. It doesn't mean that Google no longer knows about it. So you'll still need to make sure you 404 it and it's not accessible anymore.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next, when you say quick fire, none of these questions are ever quick fire. This question is, for multilingual websites, what is the most effective strategy for tackling SEO issues related to language? Is it preferable to use hreflang tags for Google's automatic translation, or should we manually translate all the content in the various languages? Who would like to kick off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that if you're doing a multilingual website, before you do one, assess whether you need to have it in that, because it is not a quick fix. Just, oh, I'll just get this sort of Google Translate or have someone quickly just translate it. It's really important to have a multilingual site if you're actually going to be having customers in that area. Because yeah, the Google automatic translation, it does help, but it's not as written by a person in a local language. Before you step and go and expand into many different markets, assess where your customers are, and then try and do it as a staged approach first, and then only do the language in the countries that you're generating the most sales or ones that you want to focus on.
Okay, great. Mihai, you were going to say as well?
Yeah, no, I think the question mentioned hreflang and translation, and the hreflang tag doesn't actually do any translation whatsoever. It's just a signal for Google to understand, okay, this is my English page, this is my French page, and so on. So this is the equivalence between these various pages and the languages that they target. But yeah, as Joe mentioned, you should try to figure out if the content is good enough for your users first. And with automatic translations, that's usually not the case, because not only might it not be very well translated, but you're likely not using whatever idioms or whatever words people are actually using in that particular language, because translation, I don't think translation has gotten that far where you could actually mimic the exact same meaning of whatever the content is in a certain language to a different language. So yeah, I think if you're launching your site, or if you're targeting an audience in a different country or speaking a different language, you'll probably need to first make sure that you find out whatever people are searching for, how are they searching for it, and make sure that your content kind of targets and covers that specific topic. And afterwards, you can play with those more technical things like the hreflang tag, and make sure that Google understands this page is targeted to whatever language and country. But yeah, first of all, try to figure out, is this page good enough for users speaking that language? And if it's good enough and the content is high quality enough for those specific users, then you don't need to do any particular content for Google, because if the content is good enough for users, then Google will pick that up. And with those technical things that I think they're very well covered in the Google documentation, in the Search Console documentation on internationalization, then you're probably set to go.
Great. And Boris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with everything. So using proper URLs, hreflang, and well-written translation is probably the key to successful international SEO. I would say that maybe, yes, you can use some of the tools to get the first draft of your content, but then still find a local translator to help you out with ensuring the quality of the content. Because for some, it depends on the language. I would say for some popular languages, the tools are probably more correct in the translation. But if I use it for English to Macedonian or vice versa, the translation is very bad. So I would say for some smaller languages, it would be a really bad idea. And maybe for some more popular languages, you can use automation translation tools to get the first draft and then optimize it for user experience.
Great. If I'm honest, we only really work in English-speaking markets, but we work across Australia, the States, and the UK. And even just between those three, I notice a difference, particularly more so on the kind of key messaging and the CRO side of what we do. And so I can imagine trying to provide content in tons of different languages, having that local expert. Yeah, I can see that making a massive difference, but I can't really add too much on this one. Was there anything else in the chat, Joe?
Yeah, there was actually. Simon was saying that if you do have a multilingual site, please use hreflang, so that when you come to redesign or rebuild your site, those the poor SEOs tasked with matching up the new URLs to the old ones at least have a chance to do their job and do it well. Thank you, Simon. Yes, good point.
Yeah.
And also, oh, Chris is saying even Scotland and England use different colloquial languages. Interesting. And America and English, I remember when I moved to the UK, so many words that I was saying in American English didn't make sense. And I was like, but it's the same language. And then moved to Australia, another language too.
Yeah. Like I said, I work with the guys in Australia, and we work with quite a few companies there, and it's totally different. Some of the things that they say don't mean anything in the UK.
Or vice versa.
Yes, of course. Next question. Content SEO is taking a huge hit from AI. When do you think SEO writers should diversify? Should they improve their off-page and technical SEO skills? Should they become an expert in using these AI tools, or should they just use other marketing channels? Cool. Mihai, you were saying you've been doing a lot of stuff with AI, because we have another question as well that I might just bring on, because I don't think we're going to get time to get to it, which is just about how you're using AI and machine learning within your SEO strategies, and how do you compete with them as well? So feel free to answer either of those.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if, I don't like that the way it's put that SEO writers are taking a hit, because SEO writers can actually use AIs and LLMs in order to scale up whatever they do, because at the end of the day, they have the know-how and they have the expertise. And I see AI and LLMs as a way to be more efficient and be able to produce more and be able to scale up more. So I see that as a more or less of an advantage. And actually related to that translation question from earlier, you can actually use LLMs to help you translate some stuff. But what's important is that you don't just, here's the text, please translate it for me. It's useful if you give it very specific instructions, like here's the tone of voice I would like you to use. Here's the attributes of this fashion product that I would like you to emphasize when you're doing the translating. Here are a few examples. Here's a translation, and here's how it's a good SEO optimized, very user-friendly translated description of a product. The more things you give it and the more examples and the higher quality those examples are, the more likely that the output from AI is also going to be good and will help you more. So I know that there's that expression, garbage in, garbage out, and I don't know what's the opposite of that, but basically if you use AI and you make sure that you give it a high quality input, then it's likely that the output will also be high quality. And I think Ross Hodgins from Siege Media has had a Brighton SEO talk about this topic, and they have a video on their website, and I think the slides from the Brighton SEO that cover how to use LLMs in content writing and what matters and what doesn't, and how can you make it actually help you rather than just spit out some not so good stuff. Yeah, I love trying to figure out how we can use AI in our work in order to scale up and do more things of high quality rather than just do things faster. So it will help you do things faster, but if you're careful enough, it could actually help you in terms of quality as well.
Great. And Boris, what about you? Are you guys using AI for anything? And if you were a content SEO writer, would you be panicking right now? Would you switch?
I would say it is a nice time for a content writer to evolve and get more deep into SEO. And there is a nice upgrade that you can do if you get more into a little bit technical SEO, but also use your content knowledge to maybe provide content updates and just to understand which content can be updated, which content can be redirected, to get familiar with duplicate content, cannibalization, some things that can help you stand out from just being a content writer, so that you move more towards a content management, get comfortable with using Google Search Console, Google Analytics, so that you can pull data and you can make decision based on the data that will completely separate you than just providing content services, for example, if you are able to back your decisions with data. I think that is something that most content writers should aim for too. And yes, I also use LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, almost daily mainly for brainstorming, outlines, getting some key ideas from a topic that you are interested in, so that it saves time a lot. I think they're like amazing technology that everybody should use. And if you are not using, I think you will be left behind in a couple of, maybe not months, but years, definitely.
Yeah, we use different tools to help. I've mentioned this about a million times on SEO Office Hours, that we use tools, for instance, to help maybe like brief writers or with some sort of making the process more efficient. But I think one thing you have to be really careful of with using these tools is not to lose your brand's voice and that expertise as well. And I think, like there's a travel company that we work with, and historically each year they offer lots of different locations. And one thing that we do is we hire local students to basically help us do the research about bars and stuff like that, because students know bars really well. And so they do a load of the research, but they're not writers. So they pull that all together. And then we get writers to then write those up into terms of like useful guides and so on. And I think AI could potentially help with that process a little bit in terms of, again, with the sort of briefing and so on. But actually, I think one of the reasons people like these guides is that they've got that local knowledge and they've been written by somebody who really understands the brand, and therefore people then save those guides and they use them when they go away, and the company feel confident enough to email them to the clients as well as use them for SEO and so on. So I think excuse me, yeah, I like that there is a place, like sometimes things like product descriptions and stuff, I think if that can be quite helpful if it's paid for something like that in terms and conditions and stuff. But I think but even then it's quite nice to have your brand's voice. Yeah. Joe, do you have anything to add, or is there anything in the chat?
Yeah, there's actually been quite a lot in the chat. Basically, I know, first of all, for the AI, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of artificial intelligence or help really with us before this is officially announced. When we're using different tools for keyword research, they're giving us back this information. So as Boris is saying, if we're not using AI, we might be missing out on something in the future. John was saying that he likes using them for transforming content, like summarizing or simplifying, rephrasing and brainstorming. But he's also saying that with the volume of junk AI content being pushed out to the web, the masses are more than ever going to want to find actual quality. So he noticed himself with regards to Gen images, AI images. They're really cool and fun, but after seeing them everywhere, it can be tiring. So give me something real and human, or give me nothing. So maybe take it with a pinch of salt, some of these things. But I also shared in the chat as well the practical webinar run by Moz Chima. This week there was a really great episode with Caitlin Hathaway. So you can learn more about LLMs. And actually next week she has another webinar. So tune into that so you can learn more about it. And I also want to say before we go, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone from Europe. And I think we have Manila, we have Brisbane. We also have dialing in from Cape Town too. And I think maybe India as well. So we have a very international European, Indian, Australia, Asia, Philippine office hours today. And if you want to attend, share the link I shared earlier with your colleagues and friends and invite them. And there's a couple other webinars I'm sharing in the chat now for you to attend in the future, SEO Nerd Switzerland, and of course, Search London's birthday.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you, bye.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.